Thank you all for being here. Athletic Director Todd Stewart will make an opening statement, and then we'll go to questions from there. Todd, go ahead.
Thank you. Good to be with everybody. Obviously, it's an exciting time for us as we get ready to start a new year and feel like we have a lot of momentum based on the way last year went. Obviously, last year we started off fall strong with football going to a bowl game for the 6th consecutive year, and then volleyball went to the NCAA tournament for the 6th consecutive year, and then in the spring, women's golf went to the NCAA tournament for the first time ever in the history of the program, and then baseball kind of capped it off with a historic season, the second most wins in the history of the program, going to the NCAA tournament. So that gives us a lot of momentum on the playing field, and then I have to point out academically also, right now we have a 90% graduation success rate. That's the highest in the history of WKU athletics, and all 14 of our sport programs have a team GPA of a 3.0 or higher. That also has never happened before. And this is a group. When I say group, the players and coaches that we have that did almost 5,000 hours of community service last year, which was also an all-time high. So, I think from an athletic department standpoint, it's a case study of how to maximize resources while making an impact on the playing field, in the community, and in the classroom. So that's what we're excited about, and we're looking forward to building upon that this year.
I guess first thing, obviously, Conference USA, as part of a larger picture with realignment, just wanted to know your thoughts on where Western stands with all that. Are you guys in active talks? Are you happy where you're at? Just what's Western's take on all this?
Yeah, good question. I think probably one of the biggest misconceptions out there is sometimes when people don't hear things, they just assume that nothing's happening. And I can assure our fans and everybody else that we constantly have a lot of conversations. When I say we, I'm talking about President Cannoni and myself. We're always talking to people all across the collegiate landscape, to other conferences, and everybody does it. Every school is having those conversations. You talk to other conferences, conferences talk to other schools, including our conference. Those things are all normal. It's just not the kind of thing that you report on or that you talk about publicly a lot. It's a little bit like the analogy I would use is the ocean. If you look out at the ocean, all you see is water. But there's a lot of things going on underneath the water. And that's kind of how college athletics is right now. There's a lot of things going on that people just can't really talk about. I do think where everybody is today is maybe not as important as where everybody is 3 to 5 years from now. I think as you get to the end of the TV deals that every conference is in right now, there is likely to be more movement, I think, in many leagues. And the key to me is that time frame, is where are you, and are you ready for that if and when movement happens there? And we will be, if that happens. And there's a lot of people that are new to the room right now. Just to kind of a quick trip back in time, because I think sometimes people forget. There's a little bit of a revisionist historians, out there that forget that when I became the athletic director in 2012, even though I had been here for 4 years, I kind of pretended like I hadn't, and I went on a listening tour and just kind of wanted to see what everybody's thoughts were on our entire athletic program. What do you think about the sports? What do you think about everything else? And honestly, the main thing that I heard from everybody is we need to get in a different conference. That was unanimous. There wasn't one single person that I talked to back in 2012 that said the Sun Belt is where you should be. Don't leave. It was exactly the opposite. It was, what are you doing to get us into a different conference? That was overwhelming. And then it was intensified in 2013. Bobby Petrino's lone year here. It's kind of crazy now when you think about football and all the bowl games we've been to, but in 2013 we went 8-4 and beat Kentucky and Navy and didn't go to a bowl game. And that's because the Sun Belt Conference then only had 2 bowl games. And so we got left out despite having an incredible year like that. So in 2014, we went to Conference USA, and I think it's worked out very, very well. Particularly the first 6 or 7 years that we were in the league. It raised our national profile because of their television package, and because of the bowl games that Conference USA had, and because of the success that we had. And then obviously in 2021, there was a serious jolt. Nine schools leave in the middle of a year. That's not ideal, and that was not a good place to be. But to Conference USA's credit, is they did in 2021 what the Sun Belt did back in 2012, 2013, 2014 when they lost schools, is the Sun Belt, to their credit, made great additions. You know, they added App State, Georgia Southern, Coastal Carolina, Georgia State, and that conference is in a really good place today, largely because of those additions that they made. But I feel this Conference USA has kind of done the same thing. I mean, I think the schools that Conference USA added in 2021 have proven to be very good additions and have put the conference, from a competitive standpoint, in a very good place right now. Geographically, obviously, we're all spread out, but that's nationwide. I mean, Cal and Stanford are in the ACC, all bets are off. So, you know, that the geography is not ideal, but from a competitive standpoint, you know, we need to get better in football. Everybody acknowledges that as a whole and for the league. But really in every other sport, you know, if you look at last year, men's basketball, women's basketball, volleyball, baseball, softball, Conference USA was better than the Sun Belt or the MAC, or pretty much the same, you know. So I feel like from a competitive standpoint, we're in a good place right now. We just have to focus on ourselves, continue to be the best version of ourselves, and we'll be ready if and when opportunities come up.
Now, that being said, too, though, just thinking back when we first took that job, we did hear so often from fans and other interested parties and different comments. Are you still hearing the same thing now with Conference USA? Because obviously it's a much different makeup than it was a few years ago.
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly some chatter out there that you hear. I mean, again, not just in our league, you know, nationwide. I think because our conference has had such a change in membership, fans aren't as familiar with some of the new members. But you know, if you look at the facts, if you look at the data, you know, it's a league that's very competitive with our peer conferences. And obviously, we're in a situation right now where we can only control us. And we are obviously surveying the landscape as we always do, and you know, we'll always do what's right for Western Kentucky University. But being a better version of ourselves, which is winning, which is adding on to facilities, just putting ourselves in the best position we can, is what we can control, and that's what we'll do.
You talk about the changing landscape in college athletics. And part of that is the NIL train that's changing. You know, that you guys are now able to directly give these players revenue with the TOPS fund that's new. Can you kind of speak on the TOPS fund a little bit?
Yeah, well, I mean, that obviously that's a result of the House settlement, the NCAA versus House case, and it was good to finally get that settled. That was lengthy. I mean, that was something that went on for multiple years, and there was uncertainty there. And now there's still some uncertainty because that case didn't really resolve everything. It didn't resolve the role of Title IX moving forward, and there's still some murkiness on what collectives can and cannot do. So I think we all wish that there was some finality with that. The other thing that's interesting about that case, this really doesn't get talked about by anybody, but you know, if you think about it, college sports was completely overhauled, the way that we do business, by a court ruling that was by one district judge in San Francisco. I mean, that's the reality of it. There's 670 some district judges in the United States, and one really had the ruling that led to all these changes. And it just seems a little surprising that a ruling of the magnitude of that wouldn't have come from one of the 13 appellate courts or even the Supreme Court. And I'm not saying the result would have been different. It may have been the same outcome, but that seems a little unusual. But it doesn't really matter. I mean, that's the reality of it. That was the decision that was made, and it's brought about a lot of changes. You know, I touched on what some of the unknowns still are, but the knowns are what you just alluded to. You know, you are able to compensate athletes in ways that you certainly were not able to before, and that's something that we're looking at, how we might do that. You know, the Power 4 schools can this year designate $20.5 million of their revenue to athletes. We won't come anywhere near that, but you know, we're looking at things that we can do because, you know, if you want to win the game, you have to play the game, and that's the new landscape that we're in now. So we'll have to do that. But I think kind of lost sometimes in the NIL shuffle was, NIL aside, I don't think there's ever been a better time for an athlete to be here than there is now, because in the last 5 years we've invested more in sports medicine, mental health, strength and conditioning, nutrition, academic advising, career development, all those areas that directly impact an athlete's experience both here and prepares them when they're not here. We've invested more in those areas than ever before, and also in our facilities. So, you know, I think that coupled with NIL makes it a great time to be here, and we just have to make sure we grow in the necessary ways.
Just looking back at the conference you say too, obviously with Montech accepting that bid to the Sun Belt, possibly in a year, possibly right now 2 years, I think, July 2026, you're supposed to exit. That brings CUSA down to 10. Is that a workable number, or do you feel like the conference needs to actively build back up to 12 or even more?
I mean, I think it's a workable number in the short term. You know, I don't think you want to add just to add. I don't know if 10's a long-term number. My guess is obviously this will be decided by the presidents and our commissioner. I doubt that Conference USA is at 10 years from now, but I think for 2026, that's probably likely the number of the membership's very content with that. And the advantage too, number one, you don't have a unique situation like you see in the Big Ten and the SEC where half the schools don't even play each other in the conferences. You know, here, everybody pretty much plays everybody. So your conference champion is somebody who's played everybody. And the other part of that, you know, I think candidly helps if you have a smaller league. Your revenue share of all the money that comes in from the college football playoff, the NCAA tournament, and the NCAA money, you get a bigger share. So if we're in a 10-member conference, we're getting far more than if we're in a 12 or 14-member conference. So there's, right now in the short term, some real pluses to being a 10-team league, but it probably won't be that way for
I just wanted to bring up the Dixie Mahurin Family Foundation head coach Kane Plona. Just that is the first ever endowed coach in WKU history. Can you talk more about how important that is, and if you guys are looking to do that with more positions in the future?
Oh, yeah, we'd love to do that with more positions in the future. That was a huge commitment that Dixie made. I mean, that will have a generational impact, and that will affect many, many lives way beyond the time that all of us are here. And so that's what makes it so special. Certainly we appreciate what she did, and you know, I have said, I mean, and I truly believe if you look at the athletic departments that are the most successful 3, 5, 7 years from now, they'll be the ones that have the most support from individuals, the most corporate support, and the most support from their fans. You know, you're going to have the individual, the corporate, and the community support. And this past year, we had a lot of people step up, you know, which is huge. Houchin's industry has been and continues to be a huge supporter of what we do here. Dion Houchins, their CEO, has been tremendous to work with and been extremely helpful. You mentioned the Dixie Mahurin gift, which was huge. You know, back in the fall, we were able to recognize the Coon family for decades, really, of support that they have provided to WKU athletics, which is remarkable. I mean, when the history of philanthropy is written for WKU athletics, then the Coon family will be on Mount Rushmore of that, as will Houchins, as will Dixie Mahurin. So, I mean, this past year, those stepped up, but we'll need to continue to have that kind of support. I mean, we'll need other people to do that if we really want to be relevant and nationally respected like we are now down the line. That'll have to continue.
Todd, I know you talk about, I mean, just staying nationally relevant in general whenever it comes to every sport, and you also talked about just being able to keep growing in different aspects. I mean, one of the ways you all are trying to keep growing right now is with the building of the Hilltopper Fieldhouse. I mean, is there any update on the progress of that and just the overall impact that it's going to have, like, on athletics here at Western?
Yeah, it's coming along great. I don't want to hex it, but I was given the date of October 15th. Should be the signed, sealed, and delivered completion date. Now, I do think that football will hopefully be able to get in there and start doing some things prior to the 15th, and hopefully the hitting area for baseball will be finished prior to then. So it's coming along great, and that'll be huge because, you know, if you think about it, players come and go, coaches come and go, administrators come and go, but buildings remain, and that field house will also have a generational impact. And that'll help, first of all, with the athletes that are here. It's a better area to train, and from a recruiting standpoint, it's certainly a selling point. You know, when you come here, athletes want to know. Those things still matter. I mean, obviously in the world of NIL, that's probably moved to the forefront of why many kids make their decisions, but I do believe that facilities will always matter too. People want to know, you know, the areas they're going to be able to train in, and so that field house will be huge both now and moving forward for us.
Last number I saw associated with that was $50 million. Is that still a number that the is gonna be the final cost?
Yeah, it'll be probably a little bit more than that. That also includes the press box, because that was kind of the same project, even though the press box was completed a year ago.
There's another big topic recently is, I mean, they came out with the new class for the Conference USA Hall of Fame, and 3 out of the 5 people were Western Zone. I mean, you have Travis Hudson and then 2 former players as well. I mean, Travis being the first volleyball coach, Jessica being the first setter, and then you have Brandon, obviously. I mean, what does that kind of just show? I mean, Western's only been in Conference USA for about a decade, to where you're producing so much great talent just at this level.
Yeah, you answered my question for me, Lauren. That's what I was going to say. I think that the impressive thing is we've only been in the league 10 years, and you have 3 people in the Hall of Fame, but I think it speaks volumes on the impact that they made. Obviously, Travis's career here is unparalleled, certainly in the volleyball community. And Jessica Lucas was a big part of that when she played here, and then Brandon Dowdy's years. I mean, the back-to-back years that he had in 2014, 2015 really propelled our football program. And I think those were the years, that we really, that 14, 15, 16 group was when we really took a step forward. We were nationally ranked, and you're winning conference championships, and you're winning bowl games, and beating people. We beat Memphis in a bowl game, we beat South Florida in a bowl game, and obviously that Bahamas Bowl was the first bowl, and he was a big part of a lot of that. So, I don't know who said it, but it's true. I think the saying was the Hall of Fame is not for the very good, it's for the very great. And I think those 3 were very great. And so it was great to see them get much deserved recognition. We will actually celebrate that this year. I don't know if I'm supposed to say this now, but I will. The FIU home game, which will be the midweek game that we have this year, that'll be a nationally televised game. We're going to recognize those 3 at that game for going to the Conference USA Hall of Fame. So we'll celebrate that along with them.
Speaking of Travis too, last I remember the location for that statue hadn't been determined. I was just looking for an update on that.
Yes, it would be right out here. Is gate 2, right? It's the gate 2. Yeah, it'll be the gate 2 entrance, so it'll be outside of Little Arena, but very close to where fans will enter. And that would be. Am I breaking all kinds of news for you?
No, that's fine.
That'll be like November 15th, right?
8th.
November 8th.
Yep.
November 8th is when we will do that. That'll be after a home volleyball game.
Is this life size, or is it going to be like 20 foot tall? I mean,
In between, it's bigger than life, but not 20 feet tall. But it's done by the sculptor Russ Faxon, who is the same one who did the Diddle statue, the Big Red statue, the Lee Robertson statue, the Jody Richards statue. So it'll be a very consistent look, with what we have here on campus. And I've seen some of the mock-ups, and it'll be great. It'll be what it should be. It'll be really cool. And obviously, you talk about things that stand the test of time. I don't think a statue goes anywhere either. So it'll be really neat to do that.
I wanted to ask you about the international student athletes here too. Just here the last year or maybe 2, it has become a little bit more challenging sometimes with visa issues. How are you guys navigating that? Has it been an issue for Western Kentucky?
No, it hasn't, and hopefully it's not. We work very well with our campus on that because of the classes that we offer at Harlexton, because of the semester at sea program. We have quite a few students that are traveling internationally, and so our university is really very equipped to deal with that, and they've been very helpful with that. And so far, we've not had any problems.
I mean, with NIL restrictions for international student athletes too, it would seem that they would become even more valuable to a school that has finite resources. Would that be the case with Western Kentucky? Would you look more internationally and try to fill some of these teams?
Well, I think, if you ask our coaches, I mean, they're going to tell you the truth when they say they're looking anywhere. But part of building a roster is getting players that obviously are good and are talented and help you win, but also are good fits. And sometimes a good fit, there's an affordability component to that. So I think if there's a player who fits, it's kind of crazy in college athletics to talk about salary caps and things like that, but I mean that's where we find ourselves now. So we can't get into a bidding war with Power 4 programs with the players. So anytime we can identify somebody that can help our program that fits within our financial means, I mean, we'll certainly do that.
You know, with all the success from last year, you talk about how the transfer portal and NIL has changed the landscape of, you know, you maybe lose a lot of good players at a school like Western going into maybe a power conference. Just how excited are you to see how things roll over from last year into that success, and hopefully you see that in 2025?
Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, the biggest change now is just, and you've all seen it already, it's just going to be the roster turnover. We're not going to have nearly the continuity that you had before. You know, that's just the system that we're in. I mean, it's, you know, I think about baseball has the kind of season they have where we're winning 4 to 6 games and go to the NCAA tournament and we play our last game of the year on a Saturday and come back home on Sunday, and on Monday guys are going to the court. You know, I mean, it's just, you would like to have the ability to kind of celebrate with a group that achieves so much, but the timing of the calendar doesn't really allow that. I mean, football's kind of the same way, you know, and I think that's one of the unfortunate parts of it. But, you know, I think the exciting part is you aren't looking at long rebuilds. If a program has an off year, you can quickly be good again. You know, if you lose a lot of players, the portal has far more players in it than spots available. So I mean, there's always the ability to add, which gives coaches opportunities that they wouldn't have had, you know, years ago if they were trying to fill a lot of roster spots or a team.
Do you think that's sustainable though, or to have certain programs always able to kind of pull up from other programs, or at some point you feel like
Well,
it needs to split?
I think what is not sustainable is, if you think about it right now, we kind of are in an era of unrestricted free agency without a salary cap. And that's not sustainable. There's not a pro league in the world that would agree to that. But yet that's where much of college athletics finds itself right now. If you want a competitive landscape, if you want to have the entire country excited about something, I don't think that's the way to go about it. I think you're gonna that will increase the haves and have-nots much quicker than we would have. And I look at the NFL. I mean, if you look at the NFL, you know, Green Bay and Kansas City can win Super Bowls. You know, it's not just LA and New York based teams, and that's because they have a national TV deal that everybody shares, and they have, you know, obviously a collective bargaining agreement, which I think will probably happen in college athletics. It would be a good thing, because that's the only way to really kind of give some consistent guidelines across the board to all of this. But you know, anytime you can have everything under one tent and everybody's playing by the same rules, you know, there's still inherent advantages of going to NFL teams in larger cities from a marketing standpoint. You know, but the Kansas City Chiefs are winning Super Bowls, you know, and that's because of the NFL's television deal and the salary cap and the uniform policies that they have in place. And college athletics has nowhere near that anymore right now. And you know, what I hope happens, and this is another thing, when I say 3 to 5 years from now, when these TV deals expire, if the group of 6, and this is kind of a radical thought, but if the group of 6 could all come together and align on a geographic footprint, where you're playing people closer to you, more natural rivalries, and you have one television deal, I think that would be a very sustainable model to have. I mean, the NFL doesn't have one TV package for the AFC East and an entirely different one for the NFC Central. I mean, they have one TV deal that all 32 teams share. And if the group of 6 could, instead of trying to kind of constantly one-up each other and have one deal that's maybe better than another deal for a year, and then another conference does something else, if everybody could just come together, I think we could all rise together. And the best programs are still going to succeed, but it would have a much more of a competitive nationwide structure where you get away from the absurd travel costs that everybody's facing right now. And that would be a good place to land.
Have you heard any support for that? Is that just your idea, or is it something that you talk to other ADs and administrators about?
No, we talk about that. You know, I mean, it's every year in Washington D.C. we have AD meetings, and everybody sings the same tune there. But then when everybody gets back to their own campus, then it's kind of the old way of doing businesses. And conferences, you know, they want to preserve what they have, and I understand that. But, you know, I think if you're only maintaining, you're falling behind. And I think everybody needs to look at anything and everything. And I do think that, to your point about a separation, I don't know if there's a complete break of schools. I wouldn't want to venture that far, but I do think from a spending standpoint, you know, because yesterday you probably saw the ruling that now the collectives can do far more than what they thought they could do. I even term a soft cap, which, you know, we know what that means. I mean, but I think that if you could have the group of 6 schools all working together, that would create interest. You know, it really would, because I think you're going to have 30, 40, 50 schools from a spending standpoint really separate themselves from everybody else. I think you may still have a Big Ten conference, you may still have a Southeastern conference, but I think you're going to see enormous disparities in the spending within those leagues. You see it already in the ACC now, where they changed their revenue structure. Florida State kind of led that charge, but where the schools that are winning the most and going to bowl games and on TV the most are going to get far more in revenue than members who don't. And I think that's going to happen. I don't see the Ohio States and the Texases of the world wanting to share what they feel the engine they're driving with everybody else. And so you're going to have a separation. I don't know the extent of which it is, but to think that these leagues are all going to look the way they look 10 years from now and everybody shares all this revenue equally, I don't think there's any way that happens. Just my thoughts.
Just looking near term too, obviously Conference USA, with these last couple of realignment shifts, it has pretty effectively pulled up schools to the point of where maybe that's a little bit of the image of that conference. Is there anything that you think that the conference could do to make it more attractive to be in, and not just a parallel move from some of the other G6s, but an upgrade? Is there something more that can be done for CUSA?
I think our schools just have to succeed. You know, it's always a popular thing to like criticize a conference office, but I mean, a conference office is only as good as its schools are. You know, and so the schools that we've added have done a good job. But we just need to win. As a league, you know, we need to win more in football. We need to get more teams in bowl games and win bowl games. That's something that we've been successful at. But we need more teams to do that. You know, I think we've always put a focus on winning conference championships, going to NCAA tournaments, going to bowl games and winning them, because that's when you have the most eyes on your program. That's when the most people pay attention. And if our league can have multiple teams doing those kind of things, winning at that level, that alone will grow the league regardless of whether we're adding more members or not.
All good? Great, thank you.
Thanks, everybody.